Hello. There is an interesting link between COVID and Ukraine, and the link is in Russian legislation. The legislation which is now in force in Russia to stop people disseminating information, really to stop people talking about the war, simply builds on legislation which was put up during COVID to stop people spreading fake news about the war. Fake news, of course, is something that I would suggest comes in originally from Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump was the man who made fake news popular as a concept, and Russia has made it dramatically dangerous. Dramatically dangerous. People now face up to 15 years in prison for disseminating fake news, which is literally repeating what they have seen on the internet. The Russian censor, working with Roskomnadzor, which is the organization which monitors and controls the internet, the Russian censor is a man called Andrei Lipov. And he rather proudly says that 38,000 messages have been deleted since this law was passed in March. He's got rid of 117,000 fake news articles. So the law is Russian code 207-3, and it was passed on March the 4th. It was presented on March the 3rd. There was a special session of the Duma held, and it was rushed through by 11 p.m. So there is a very interesting case at the moment going through with somebody who posted something fairly mild at, I think, 9:20 p.m. He's been arrested, but of course the law didn't come into effect until 11 p.m. So on a technicality, maybe he can evade prison, but I very much doubt it. One of the big features is if one in any way discredits the armed forces, 15 years immediately. And discrediting the armed forces means challenging the official version of events. So this law is based on Law 207-1, which threatened 3 years in prison for spreading false news about COVID. Anyway, under this law, so far, 138 Russians have been charged. I mean, these are people, these are not necessarily activists. I think this is sending a signal to ordinary people to be terrified. This is why people are not coming out on the streets and protesting against Madman Putin and his cronies. This is why ordinary people like Sasha Skochilenko, who faces prison. She's an English teacher. She faces prison for explaining to her students that they cannot travel to Europe for competitions and exchanges. People like Richard Rose and his wife from a little town called Kirov. He's a theatre director and a musician. He's simply reposted a piece about Butcher on the Russian equivalent of Facebook. That's VKontakte. Now, he explains that he thinks his phone was tapped, and of course he's under arrest, and so was his wife, who shared the account. This is a pernicious law, and but as I say, it's building on laws which were set up for controlling people in COVID. And if we look over at Russia and we think, oh dear, there's a lot of control there. Yes, there is a lot of control, a dictatorial control. But we have to be very careful that in this climate we are not using laws in the same way. I'll put up a post in the next day or so about the threats to send refugees to Rwanda and how this is being conducted at the moment, because it seems to me that is a parallel use of legislation. Legislation should be there to protect people, not to terrify people. It's very simple, very, very simple.